Hi there, this is Dr. M Buddy. Let me give you some hints on how to get started with this project one. Of course, the first thing you have to do is you have to read it. I'll assume that you've done that at this point. If not, stop this video and read it. Basically, it's cold, so let's look at how wind chill is calculated, and that's what we're going to do with this project. And what you so what are we going to do? Well, there are two parts to wind chill. You have to have an air temperature and a wind speed. Like it's 10 degrees out and the wind's blowing 15 miles an hour. What is the wind chill? Now, in order to do that, we're going to have to have a formula for that, and we give you a place to look for it. You can go get the information on the on the internet, but we also went and put the formula down for you. And before you try to solve this problem in Python, you've got to be able to solve it with pencil and paper. Very first thing to do. So forget Python. Let's just use the formula and solve this. And I'm not going to go through the whole exercise, but we need two things. We need an air temperature and an air speed, and let's give them both a value of 10 just because it's easier to calculate. All right, so the air temperature is 10, the air speed is 10, and what's our formula? Well, the formula says we take 35.47 plus 0.62 times the air temperature. Well, we said the air temperature was 10, so we'll just use the value of 10 and just do this in a calculator. And then this little slash means we're continuing the formula on to the next line. That's not that's all that thing means. So then we have to take 35.75 times the airspeed. Well, again, I called that 10 just to make my calculations easy. And the double star is the exponent. So that's raised to the first power. So we take the airspeed, 10 to the 0.16, multiply that by 35.75 and subtract it. And then we take 0.42 times the air temperature, that's 10 again, times the airspeed raised to the 16th power. And you know from arithmetic that you do raise it to the power first, and then you do the multiplication, then the addition. The same stuff you've had since 3rd grade. So plug that into a calculator and find out what the wind speed is. Now that you know how to do the formula, and you actually have a value to test, and by the way, check whether the right number is, go on the internet and find out what the wind chill is. If you have a value of where the air temperature is 10 and the airspeed is 10. That's the first thing to do. Got to do it on pencil and paper. And once you're comfortable that you understand the formula and you've got a particular value, then we can start thinking about how to do this with Python. And if we look earlier in the project, we get to see what we're being asked to do. You are going to prompt the user for an air temperature, right? And we're going to be dealing with this as a floating point. That's like a number, that has a decimal point in it, like a 37.5. And then once we have that, then of course we have to ask the user to give us a wind speed measurement, again as another floating point value. Suppose it's 10.3, something like that. And then perform the calculations. What are the calculations? Hey, we already know how to do that because we just did it in our calculator. All right. And then finally we display. So there's my steps that I have to do. I prompt the user and get an air temperature. I prompt the user again and get a wind speed. Now I've got an air temperature and a wind speed. I will perform the calculations and then I'll display. So we've got 4 things that we have to do. If I can write 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 things that we have to do. How do we do those? Well, we tell you how to do each of those later in the project. So for 1, what does it mean to prompt? Well, that's what the input is. And so here's a prompt. Input, please enter a number, and when that number comes back, it will be in this num string, and so some number that's a string, and then we have to convert that to a float. What in the world does that mean? Well, I'm on a Mac here. Let's go to my applications. I still have only Python 3.2. You're supposed to have 3.3. I'm not going to worry about that right now because the differences are pretty small. There are a couple little things we want to watch out for, but I just haven't loaded it on yet. If I want to create a new file, then we can do that. And one of the first things that you want to do is to save your file. And I've got a place to save it, someplace here in my 231. Let's see, we're in spring 14, and this is the project. This is project 1, and proj01.py always end with a py. We'll see why later on. And so we've got something in here. Let's see, will copy and paste work for me today? Let's try this out. There it is. Yeah, it sort of worked. We got the lines off a little bit, and there we go. And notice the colors. If you don't have colors, that means you didn't save it with a .py. So there's what it said to try and do, and let's fire that up. Let's run it. Run the module, and it says please enter a number 12.3. Now that didn't seem like it did much, but in fact we can see in the shell. Let's see what num string looks like. That's a string, and see the quotes on it. And let's see what num float looks like. Aha, there's the number without the quotes. And one thing that we could do is, if we need, it's always nice to display our values. A couple of different things we can do. I can say in the shell, I can say print num float, and it would print that. I can also put that into my program. Print num. I can print num float like that. I can run. I can save it, and I can run it with the. And it says please enter a number. We'll go 23.4 this time, and we see it displayed. Now it's not very interesting because there's just a value there, so let's go back to my program and say the float is, put a string in there, and now it says please enter a number 34.566, and the float is that. So now we can see I can input a value, and I can prompt for a value, I can make it a float, and I can print it. Now, so what else do I need to do? I have to do some calculations. And so I will do some calculations. Result equals number float raised to the third power. Print result is result. When I run that, well, okay, so let's put an easier number. Let's just put the number 2. The float is 2, the result is 8. I used a 2 because I know that 2 to the third power is 8, and there's a result. So what have I done here? Let's take a look at this. I prompted. And then I converted to a float. And I printed it out to see what was there, and then I did a calculation. And then I displayed the result. And there's a whole program. Now, clearly, this is a little bit different than what you have to do, but you have to prompt and convert it to a float. And in fact, you have to do that again. You prompt, convert to a float, and then you have to prompt again and convert to a float again. And then you do a calculation, and then you display the results. So there's the basic outline of the program. First of all, you do it on pencil and paper with a calculator and see that you get a result. And then here's a little bit of a start on how you can make that program.